Hello, family, 1111ers. We are here with Bruce Cryer, one of the former directors of the HeartMath. He was a former CEO, I believe, for 11 years. Yes.
Indeed.
And now he has just blossomed into his own work after he left HeartMath, and we're going to learn so much more about the Renaissance human and who Bruce Cryer is. Can you please share a little bit of who you're being in the world?
I love the question, Anastara. Who I'm being in the world? Well, I am being my full self.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually wrote a song about this called Yeah, I'm Me, which celebrates the celebration of the fullness of who each of us is. And while I thought I had been doing that kind of all along, then after I got really sick for a couple of years and emerged alive and healthy
Mm.
and vital again, I realized, oh no, there's more to go, much more to go. And that was actually a delightful uh, awareness. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, I'm being as fully realized as I can be, fully accepting of all the aspects of myself and celebrating of all the aspects of myself as I possibly can, and being
Mm-hmm.
as in touch with the creative flow of life force from within me as I possibly can, so I can be fully alive and inspire others to do the same.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And your website now says strategy and performance partner. Can you explain a little bit what that means?
When I stepped away from the CEO position of HeartMath back in 2011, I was just coming out of a healing journey of 2 years and cancer and staph infection in my blood and
Mm.
double hip replacement, the passing of my mother, the
Oh.
ending of my marriage, and decided not only that, but I needed to step away from being the CEO of HeartMath, which had been a 20-year. I've been involved with HeartMath since the very beginning, known Doc
Mm-hmm.
Childrey, the founder, for 41 years now.
Mm.
But I realized there was not only did I need to heal
Yeah.
because there was a lot that had been going on in my body and a lot of procedures and surgeries and all kinds of things that I had been dealing
Mm.
with. But I also had to kind of get clear on what was the next step, because I wasn't sure. There wasn't a plan at the time
Mm.
other than
Mm-hmm.
heal and get
Yes.
stabilized. And but as I started pursuing that, I'd been doing a lot of executive work with HeartMath. And
Mm-hmm.
so when we would work with the big hospital system, I would work with the executive team. When we work with corporate groups, I would work with the executive team and maybe work with the trainers, and then they would advance it all out through the organization.
Mm-hmm.
So I was used to working with leaders a lot, and plus I'd been a leader a lot, and I
Mm-hmm.
realized that there were a lot of people very interested in my opinions and my experiences around how you strategize the growing of a business. HeartMath's pretty unique business actually, and others that I've
Mm-hmm.
been involved with. And plus, I've just had this interest in performance for a whole bunch of reasons
Yeah.
for over 50 years because I'm a musician, I'm a singer, I'm a dancer, I'm an artist in different ways. And so performance has been interesting to me from a lot of different angles. And then
Wow.
getting into HeartMath, we were very interested in the performance of mind, body, emotion, spirit, and the interaction, the coherence between all of those. So a friend of mine actually came up with that phrase, strategy and performance partner. And she said, I think that's what you are. And I said, great. I like that. I like that,
Yeah, I like
strategy
it
and
too.
performance partner. So
Yeah.
it's more the phrase on for the consulting mentoring side of what I do.
Right. Amazing. So it sounds like you're a leader of leaders. Yeah. Is
Yes,
there go on.
you could say that. I enjoy very much working with people who are leaders, and that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean massive organizations only. That means your family. That means
Mm-hmm.
leader of a classroom, leader of
Mm-hmm.
a community, leader of a business. Because I love to work with people who have vision bigger than just themselves and are seeing an opportunity, seeing something for a business they could create or for a movement they could build or whatever it may be. That's exciting to me because ever since I was a teenager, I was drawn to movements and to the idea of being part of new things that could become a movement, which in a way is what HeartMath has become. And
Yeah.
so it appeals to me to work with similarly inspired people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. I think I would like to have a discovery call with you myself.
You know where I live pretty
Mhm.
much. We can do that.
That would be
So
amazing.
I
Yay.
love that. Sure.
Wonderful. And so you talked about music and dance, and all. Tell us a little bit of some of your performance art and some of the people you might have collaborated with.
Yeah, boy. So music's been a lifelong thing for me. Picked up trumpet at age 8 in my
Hmm.
elementary school, and was a trumpet player all through school, and enjoyed it a lot. Never thought I'd do it professionally. There were singers in the family, really good singers, like Broadway star singers in the family, and my father was a brilliant singer. And as I entered senior year, I got the bug to be on stage, not just playing in the orchestra for the people on stage. And I joined the chorus of my high school, and within 2 months, I'd been given the lead role in the musical that spring. Shocked
Cool.
though I was, because I wasn't aspiring to be the lead of a musical, and here I was being handed the lead. 9 months later, I did the lead. 2 years later, I was in the longest running musical in the world called The Fantastics, and I had an 800 performance run in The Fantastics,
Wow.
in two pieces. I first entered the show. It was literally my summer job between sophomore and junior years at the Oberlin Conservatory, and they needed somebody for 2 months, and they hired me, and I went and
Mm.
I finished the show on a Sunday night. Monday afternoon, I was a junior at Oberlin again, walking around the campus, thinking, did that actually happen? Was I actually in New York this summer doing all that in the longest running musical in the world? Or possibly I was drugged? Was that, was something?
Right?
So all of that was wild. Then I finished school, and I had this kind of remarkable ride at the Oberlin Conservatory. For people who don't know that school, it's at a caliber of Juilliard and Indiana
Hmm.
University and some
Okay.
of the wonderful music conservatories. It's brilliant. Many big stars were trained there, some of whom were musicians, some were dancers, some were actors. Any number of very well-known people. The director of The Lion King on Broadway,
Hmm.
the fabulous Julie Taymor was one of my classmates. Philip Himberg, who directed the Sundance Theater Institute for more than 20 years, he was there.
Wow.
He and I were roommates for 1 year. Another year, I was roommates with this marvelous man I mentioned to you named Gary Malkin. And Gary
Mm.
not only has won 7 Emmys for film scores, including the film Thrive and Thrive
Hmm.
2. He wrote the
Hmm.
score for both of those films, but many other films and TV shows, 7 Emmys, and many other awards. He and I were roommates sophomore year at Oberlin. So we have performed together. We started performing together in 2012 when I got finished with all the health stuff. I
Uh-huh.
now felt the urge to perform, and my first thought when I felt that urge, my first thought was Gary, because he had been kind of
Mm.
hoping to work with me in some way, and I was always too busy with HeartMath. And now I was not in HeartMath, and formerly
Hmm.
I still had a role there, but it was much smaller.
Hmm.
And so we began to work together in a very wonderful performance way. And so it's been a wonderful collaboration.
Yeah.
And I mean, pulling out names from the past is a is a challenge. Are you hearing that in the background, by the way?
I am. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all
Um,
good.
Somebody downstairs is
Yeah.
is, is not happy. It's not
We're gonna
related. It's
clear
not.
that field right now. Clear the field.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
I ask you this because I through your story, so many people are going through their dark night of the soul at this time, right? We have very uncertain future at this moment, and um, so many are going through whatever it is that they're going through: loss of job, loss of home, not being able to afford things, and that they used to be able to. And so I feel like there's a lot of healing that's happening on the planet. And when we come out of that dark night of the soul, it's almost that death and rebirth into the next chapter of your life. And so you
yes.
had this beautiful chapter with HeartMath and all the science and spirituality, consciousness, and all of those conversations leading into music. And I just see the two of them weaving so well together. So, can you tell us a little bit more about your journey from HeartMath and how it informs your music today?
Well, I spent 20 years in formally in HeartMath, in the development of the programs, in the teaching of the programs, learning how to be as coherent in my heart as I could possibly be, learning to breathe through my heart every day, learning to do heart lock-ins that may have already heard about today in this event. And so on a very practical, physiological, let alone emotional and spiritual level, learning what it means to live from the heart. And I could see as I was leaving HeartMath, the formal structure. And as I say, I didn't leave. I still teach it. I still teach it at
Yes.
Stanford. I coach people in it. I'm interviewed about it all the time. This is the second time today I've been interviewed about it.
Yes.
And so it's part of me. My daughter works there. My ex-wife works there. Many of my best friends of my entire life are the leaders and the other folks that work there. So it's a huge part of me and always will be. But I began to feel like there was this next chapter that I was supposed to live out, and that there'd been kind of a grand finale of the previous chapter, which had its rough moments, meaning all the health stuff I'd gone through. But I emerged feeling optimistic, like I did have a life with me, for me ahead. And I even kind of whimsically thought, I've actually gone through all the old age stuff already, so I don't think I'll have to go through that again. I even had shingles and salmonella poisoning and gout.
Oh no.
So, I just like, why not pick all the old age things, all the like the really crappy things that you wouldn't want to have to got them all.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's other things that are worse, of course, than even those things. But at any rate, I went through a lot. And so emerging out of that, it felt like this is a time to not only kind of shed that and to recenter even deeper in my heart, but now it really is my own journey, but so much informed by all this that's in me. I have the neural circuitry to want to be living in my heart. I consciously built that, intentionally built that. I don't want to give that up. Why would I give that up? Why would the whole philosophy of heart intelligence and brain coherence and how important they are to work together as a team? That's fundamental to what I believe about life, not just because we kind of talked about that a lot, at HeartMath. So it's in me, it's in my DNA, it's in how I think, how I feel, and all that. And at the same time, it felt like there was this other thing starting to emerge, and it was very quiet at first. It wasn't obvious. It's like as I was stepping down, which was in July of 2011, I had no plan. The plan was one more hip had to get replaced, which was happening 6 weeks later. Then it was like rehab, chill,
physical therapy,
rebalance, all that stuff. Yeah. And just see what happens. And fortunately, as I say, I felt like I had some options, but the urge to create again became this kind of unstoppable force once I started working with Gary, and we started creating these keynote performances. And the first one was for Kaiser. I had been already hired to do a talk for Kaiser, the big healthcare system in the Bay Area. And I was going to be speaking to several hundred doctors and nurses from the front lines, from hospitals. And it was to share about my experience as a patient, all the things that I had gone through. And then meanwhile, after I'd kind of gotten the contract, Gary and I start working together, and we're having a great time several weekends in a row, and thinking we have a very interesting chemistry. He's larger than life and very New York and loud and expressive and all that. I've become more that way, actually, to just survive around him. But I'm like it's like a odd couple, one very different personalities. Was much quieter, more reserved, and like being very careful about what I say. But the dynamic was beautiful. And so it occurred to me, why don't I suggest to Kaiser that we do a performance, not just a talk, and that I bring somebody with me, and it'd be an Emmy award-winning composer. And I think you know him, don't you guys? His name is Gary Malcolm. They said, yeah, we know Gary. You know Gary? I said, yeah, I know him. We were college roommates. What? You were college roommates too? Amazing. So that was the kind of coming out party of a process that was starting in me of reawakening my own creativity, and realizing that was a whole another chapter. I thought I was finished with. I didn't think that was another thing to go. I thought I've done that. I've had a wonderful, relatively brief 5-year career. I got to sing a bunch in the early years of HeartMath. We had a band that was super fun.
Really?
And then
That's so
it was
great.
one of the highlights of going to HeartMath for a weekend. Is the band going to play? Is the band going to play?
Really?
We were
Wow.
surprisingly good because there were 6 of us, including Howard Martin,
Uh-huh.
who's on the broadcast today,
Yep.
including Howard and several others who had all had professional careers in music or theater. And so we had a core of a band that was surprisingly good. And like
Mm-hmm.
guests would come and who's the drummer? He's the executive VP of strategy. What? Who is the lead guitarist? He's the head chef. Who's that cute singer? She's the head of PR. Who are these people? Do you audition your staff? We said, well, you have to be able to carry a beat and at least
Right, of
hum and
course.
enjoy it to work here. That was the joke. But at any rate, I thought that chapter of my life was over. I didn't consciously miss
Mm.
it. And
Mm.
yet, when I was free and had a chance to kind of explore, and there were several events that happened where there was kind of a reawakening of the creative energy in
Mm.
me that just was
Mm.
happening spontaneously. I didn't plan it. I wasn't looking for it. But then as
Mm.
it started, it was like, once the genie's out of the bottle, I can't put it back. And then once we started preparing for this Kaiser event, and I started taking it pretty seriously. I said to Gary one day, okay, dude, you've performed every day of your freaking life for the last 60 years. I, on the other hand, I've had like a 20-year break. So
Uh-huh.
I need a dress rehearsal in front of an audience.
Uh-huh.
And Gary had a big home at the time, and we got 75 people to watch a dress rehearsal
Oh, amazing.
a couple of weeks before we actually were going to do it live.
Uh-huh.
And but I felt like I was back in show business again because we were having rehearsals, and we had a dress rehearsal where audience members came cheering us on. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong with it. Every time we needed to use technology, it didn't work. Twice, Gary in his grand gestures knocked glasses full of water onto the slate
Oh
hearth,
no.
shattering them. And not just once, but twice. So like
Okay.
everything could have gone wrong. Our Kaiser folks were there. They came to me at the end. They said, first of all, you won't have all those tech problems at Kaiser. We got our act together. Second of
Okay.
all, it's perfect. And I
Uh-huh.
was so relieved. It was like, oh, thank
Mm.
God. We were doing it for them. We had invited them so that they would thumbs up or
Yeah,
no,
yeah, yeah.
no, you got 2
Totally.
weeks to change it quick.
Right.
So they did. They gave us the thumbs up, and then we did it live. And as I say, it was the beginning of realizing I've got to be involved in bringing music and creativity more into ideas like
Mm.
HeartMath. When I
Mm-hmm.
was content, I'd never stopped teaching HeartMath. I bring music into it. I'll use music for lock-ins sometimes. I'll get people dancing because I feel like that's me, is to express in
Mm-hmm.
those ways. So why not? That's how I'm going to teach it, and to have some of those elements too, because to me that's can make it even more alive for some people.
Mm.
So
Mm. I
so
love that.
it's been a really interesting journey to just kind of keep going for it and finding where I'll kind of fall back into old ruts of being too much in my left brain, or like right now, as you know, I run a graduate school for holistic
Uh-huh.
studies here on the East
Yes.
Coast, and I got to be in my head a lot. And sometimes like,
Mm-hmm.
please, can't I rehearse anything? There must be something I could
Right?
rehearse. And I'll go out and
Wow.
drive in the car just to sing in the car. So
Mm. Mm.
so it's not with that challenge to find that balance, but that's the motivator, was
Mm.
realizing there's other ways that my heart wants to express in this life, and that those gifts
Exactly.
that I thought were kind of they were wonderful when I was younger, but they're not as relevant now. Wrong. Um, I think many people are very motivated and inspired to hear, even though it had been years since I had sung, years, I couldn't dance before the hip surgeries. It wouldn't have been
Mm-hmm.
even possible to dance. The fact that I'm
No.
dancing again brings me to tears often, because I didn't even dream that the hip surgery would result in me being able to dance again. And when I
Mm.
found that I could dance, it was like, I can dance again, because it's been such an incredible way to align and release and feel connected to my higher self, to God, and to feel connected to my mother who passed away then, and love that I lost, and there's all kinds of things. And to
Mm.
have that gift again was just incredibly powerful for me. And little by little, I realized people are inspired by this because they're thinking, well, I lost something too. You mean I maybe could get it back? I didn't expect I'd get it back. And look what happened. I didn't expect I'd be singing again. And look what happened. So don't
Mm,
give up.
mm, mhm,
And
mhm.
that's why staying true to your heart and listening to your heart, because it was my heart that was prompting me all along.
Yeah.
It wasn't a contract. I rarely get paid to sing now. Kaiser paid us very well for the event. We did four
Nice.
years in a row for them. They loved it so much. But I sing a lot just for fun and for the joy, the sheer joy of doing it, and
Ah,
not expecting to make income out of it. But
mm,
it's the joy for the joy of it that I feel so
yeah.
grateful that I'm doing it again. And
Mhm.
you know,
Mm. What a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
absolutely,
I think a lot of people have gone through some kind of loss in the last year and a half, 2 years, right? Just the loss
especially,
of community and loss of being able to gather together and so many things that unfold from being able to be together in each other's presence. And
yeah,
so I had one girlfriend who told me that during the pandemic, she didn't have human touch for 3 months. She was by herself in her apartment in the city. And so I feel like there's a certain point where we start to like realize that things have shifted and what is my heart calling me to do now? Right? This part of my
exactly,
life, this chapter is coming to a close and a lot of us are feeling that. A lot of us are feeling that and we're moving into what is the next chapter? What am I here to
yeah,
share? What is my true heart's calling? What is my purpose on this planet? Right? And so I feel
exactly,
like your term Renaissance human, I mean, you're a jack of all trades, you do it all, right? And in the art world, a thespian. And so, can you explain to us a little bit further what Renaissance human is and how that unfolds for you or how you've developed this?
yes, you bet. Well, several years ago, probably back in 2016, 2015, 2016, I had been performing at that point for 3 or 4 years, and Gary and I were doing events in Italy and with Kaiser and Palm
Mm-hmm.
Springs and different places. And it was becoming more and more of a thing, and we called it What Makes Your Heart Sing. And so many people who had only known me as the HeartMath CEO or the corporate guy for HeartMath, and maybe didn't even know I'd ever had a career in music and theater,
Mm-hmm.
were like, "You're singing again? I didn't know you could sing." Like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
actually, I can, and I have pretty well for a while. So they were like, "Wow, you're like a Renaissance man," and
Mm.
because they never knew that I had these artistic sides, because they'd never seen it or never heard about it,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And I started hearing that more and more because people were also commenting the Renaissance term, because like I was having a rebirth physically. I'd gotten through all that stuff, and
Yeah.
now I was like younger than ever. It seemed like to some people. So this Renaissance theme kept being mentioned. And after, I don't know, the fourth or fifth time somebody said, "You're like a Renaissance man," I was pondering it more and more. And I'd been thinking about writing about this journey, because,
Mm-hmm.
it was really interesting to me that as I got out there and was talking about being a cancer survivor, even though that wasn't the main point of my story, and talking about going through hip replacement and staph infections and all the rest, but
Mm-hmm.
especially coming back into the creativity, that I was really resonating for a lot of people, and like
Yeah.
wishing they could not go through all that, but at least get
Yeah.
back to the creativity of some aspect that they've always wanted to develop or used to have, and they lost
Mm-hmm.
it, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very inspired. So I thought, I think I should be writing about this, and I started writing a book. But meanwhile, this Renaissance man idea was like, okay, well, that, number one, the term lacks gender sensitivity.
Yes.
you know, that's the number. That's a problem. Number two, I mean more than just being accepting of all the different talents. That's part of it. What I mean by
Mm-hmm.
Renaissance human, because I
Mm-hmm.
kept pondering it. At some point, the term Renaissance human occurred to me. It just like popped in. Oh, Renaissance human. That sounds perfect. That's exactly that.
That makes
That embraces
sense.
every possible
Yes.
um, version of a human, and it feels also more about the future. So it's somehow
Mm.
honoring the past with
Mhm.
Renaissance, and but also about the future. But as I pondered deeply, well, what do I mean by Renaissance human? Because this is a new thing. Yes, it sounds like a takeoff on Renaissance man, Renaissance woman, but it's a new thing too. And I thought, well, Renaissance literally means rebirth, to birth
Yes.
again.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, what we get to do as humans, and it's very obvious when we're young, many things are being born. We are physically born out of mom into earth, onto the
Mm-hmm.
planet. And then we birth the ability to walk, and we birth the ability to see more clearly, and we birth the ability to talk and understand language. And later we birth the ability to ride a bike and read, and all kinds of things
Mm-hmm.
are being birthed and birthed. And literally circuitry is being developed in our brains, in our bodies, to allow us to develop skills and hang on to them and keep them. And so we know that process happens all through. And then puberty is like, whoa, serious new, what the is going on now? New birth is happening.
Hormones.
Yeah, yeah. And all that is yet an obvious other level, but it continues. And it could be a course that gives birth to a whole new side of you never knew you had. Or you go somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
you go to a
Mm-hmm.
country, or you go on a vacation, and you suddenly learn about another culture, and you realize, I want to be a student of that. And so
Mm.
something else is being born. And I thought, and then somehow we buy into this notion that is supposed to end, that you're supposed to now get stable at a certain point, kind of figure out what you want to do.
Mm.
Obviously, this is changing more and more with each generation, more and more fluidity
Yeah.
to all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But still, the overall mindset in most of the world is decide what you want to do and don't be messing around with it. If you want to be an artist later on, like in retirement years, sure, if you want to do something more creative, but stick to your knitting, make sure you got the bases covered, all of those kinds of language. And so we don't believe that we're supposed to keep birthing things, and society doesn't either. So God forbid we hit our
Mm.
40s or 50s and want to consider a significant change in our life, because that's what's going on, not because we're just deciding, oh, I need to do that, but we're
Mm.
we're we're stigmatized as, oh, he's having a midlife crisis,
Right.
like he wants to
Mm-hmm.
be young again. Like that's all it's
Mm-hmm.
about. No, no, it's like we're supposed to keep birthing. We're supposed to keep
Mm-hmm.
learning and growing and giving birth to new parts of ourselves. That was part of the plan for this
Mm-hmm.
lifetime. That's what the plan is, was to keep birthing and keep growing and keep developing. And
Yes.
so Renaissance human for me is acknowledging that we're all that way. That's how
Mm-hmm.
we're all designed. And it's a mistake to call the artists the creatives. That creativity is that ability to continue to give birth to an idea, to a thought,
Mm.
to anything. The fact that
Mm-hmm.
what right now, Anastara, I mean, you have some questions you're probably referring to or not, but we're very much in the moment. I'm
Yeah.
not reading a script. You're not reading a script.
No.
So we are
Mm-hmm.
creating. This is a
Yeah.
creative experience right now. We are creating.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to help people realize that unless you're working from a script, unless you're completely in your rote behavior, because every morning you have to get up at 6, and every morning at 6:15 you have to make that cup of coffee, and every morning at 6:30 you have to read the news on the web, whatever. If you're acting in a very mechanical automaton way, unless you're doing that, you actually are creating all the time. That's what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Mm-hmm.
not just the artists that create, it's not just art that is creation.
Correct.
It's every moment, every relationship, every interaction. And we're all made of the same stuff. We all have the power
Mm.
to create life, or we wouldn't have it.
Mm-hmm.
We have
Mm-hmm.
that power to create life. Whether or not we ever are involved in creating another life, I had the good fortune of being the father of a beautiful, amazing daughter. Everybody doesn't have that, obviously, but whether or not we ever have that urge to create is built
Mm.
into all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are very clear they don't want to have kids, and often it's because they're so creative they can't imagine how they're going to have kids and do them justice, because there's so much they
Mm.
want to create in their life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to have
Mm-hmm.
kids because I want to keep doing and creating and exploring.
Yep.
So to me, Renaissance human is celebrating the fact that as humans, as a species, we get to continue to create.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a remarkable gift we have, that we've been
Yes,
given.
it is. Yes, it is. I love that. I actually really enjoy Joe Dispenza and some of what he transmits and a lot of his talks and his book Becoming Supernatural. And right now I'm actually listening to Breaking the Habit of Being You. Not right now in this moment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But part of what he talks about is that the get up, the look at yourself in the mirror, brush your teeth, do this, zip up your thing, go to work, drive
Exactly.
home. It's like when that routine is happening, you identify as you because it's you doing those mundane process over and over and over again, and that defines your life. And so when we break that pattern, or we step outside our comfort zone, or we get into our creative zone and pick up a paintbrush if we've never done it before, or pick up a pen to write if you've never done it before, like, what a perfect time right now to do that. And so what I guess my question is what advice do you have for people who want to be creative but just haven't quite found exactly what it is that makes their heart sing?
Beautiful question. Well, first of all, it's to consider the possibility that I'm right, that we're all truly born with the power to create life, which makes us all of us, creative beings. The nature of what we are is creative. Some people get all the credit because they have obvious artistic skills. So we think, oh, he's really creative. Like, people would look at me that way, like all these things that I can do that are public. I mean, some people know me for my sunset photography. Like, wow, you have this amazing relationship with the sky. Yeah, I know. It's a wide open love affair. I'm very open about it.
The other day, and the storm happened. You're like, wait, I'm gonna grab my phone and go take a picture.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And so, again, people equate creativity with artistic expression too much. And so they say, well, he's so creative because all these things that I can do that you can see. But to me, the real creative energy can express in so many ways. So in 2017, I had 3 major projects / challenges. One was to develop a course on creativity for Stanford. They commissioned me to do that.
Yes.
A few months later, I was invited to create an album of original music with these 2 remarkable brothers named Isaac and Toro Corin. I decided to go for that. And I decided to name the album Renaissance Human, because I thought the doing of this album will be a stretch for me. I've never written a song in my life, never even wanted to. And here I am saying yes to a project because it felt like there will be an incredible journey with this. I'll be very fulfilled somehow through the process, and I need to do it. The third thing that was going on at the same time is I'd fallen in love with the lady who lived in New York City, and I lived in the Bay Area. And to try to build that relationship and sustain it over very long distance was not easy. Plus, she was a generation younger and Russian. And so we had a lot of differences. And so then the question is, of these 3 things, which was the biggest creative challenge? The first thought would be, well, of course, creating the course on creativity for Stanford, that would be, wow, what pressure that must be. But then the album, well, that'd be a lot of pressure because you'd never written an album in your life and people could think you were an amateur and criticize you and all that. That would be a big challenge. What about the girl thing, the relationship?
Living bi-coastally.
So that's the one that was the biggest challenge. That was the one that was the big, because it's all about people and dynamics and relationships. I can make a song, I could make a chorus and make it look good, but that's not as hard as creating a relationship at certain times because of certain obstacles or things that make it challenging. So I give that example to remind people that many people have achieved things creatively they wouldn't have thought of were a creative challenge. But they've achieved something. They've overcome an obstacle. I think about at HeartMath. There's a guy at HeartMath who's an operations guy. He's still there running the operations. Eric. Eric is an incredible problem solver. Eric's the kind of guy, if anything goes wrong, you call Eric because you know he'll have a fix for it.
Nice.
Is Eric considered one of the creative people at HeartMath? Not in the traditional way we think of it. He's not a designer. He's not a writer. He's not a poet. He's none of those things. But he could take a problem and figure it out creatively. There's a guy at HeartMath named Tom, who was an IT guy. He was so creative, he could just walk into a room and the computer would start working again. This would happen many times.
My husband.
I'd say, Tom, can you come down to my office? You don't have to actually do anything. Just come and stand near my computer. It just needs you right now.
Right, please.
But my point being, he was another one that could see something that everybody else was completely baffled by and said, oh, I think you do this, and I think you do this, and I think you do this, and it was done. So is that not creativity? So why do we not consider problem solving where you're taking something that's very difficult and like stuck and you turn it into something else, why is that not a creative act? Of course it is.
Mm.
So I'm wanting to get people to realize you are creative in your life now
Mm-hmm.
without being that conscious. What if you
Mm-hmm.
were really conscious and really using your heart and realizing, wait a minute, Joe Dispenza is right. If I'm just walking around like a robot doing everything exactly the same way every moment, that's no fun. That's not being a creator. Why don't I start to make things real and make them different and make them fun? And that's the life I want to live, as opposed to I'm walking around, I've got to do everything exactly the same way every day. How fun is that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's partially the blessing of everything that we've gone through the last year and a half is so many people had to stop working and just be at home and actually
Exactly.
discover what it is that makes their heart sing. So I know that
Exactly.
you actually offer a creativity masterclass on, I was perusing your website and it was one of the things that I saw. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What does that entail?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, after Stanford invited me to create an original course on creativity and tie it to well-being, that was the idea for Stanford, was
Ah.
if you are getting more into your creative essence, your creative energy, it's going to help your well-being. And we all kind of know this. If we love to paint and get a chance to do it, it
It
changes
feels
our
good.
well-being. We feel
Yeah.
if it's time for the garden, to start working in the garden, and you get out there, it's like, oh, awesome, and it
Yeah.
feels so good. And science has proven that when you're loving what you're doing, no matter what it is, but especially creative things, that's why we want to do them. When I'm creative, it feels so good. It's so fun. It doesn't have to even be perfect. It's the process that's so fun. Like kids
The
playing,
juice is flowing.
they're the kids are not worried about the outcome. They're just
Mm-hmm.
enjoying the process of the play. So so that's the premise. And as I built the course for Stanford, I realized there were kind of 5 elements that I had kind of intuitively been doing, not because I ever intended to create a course, but just because this is what I was doing in order to kind of get the creative mojo back that I knew I had, and knew there was another level of it. And so as I started to create the course, and now I've kind of iterated this into a master class, which goes much deeper than the first version for Stanford. It's built around what I call 5 catalysts.
Yeah.
And a catalyst meaning, like in chemistry, you take one ingredient, you add it to another one, and it turns into something entirely different.
Something happens. Yeah.
Because that catalyst sets in motion a chemical reaction that changes it forever. So a catalyst is something that you can add to anything and it will change it in a significant way. So I thought, well, catalysts for creativity, there's all kinds of things that can catalyze your creativity, but there were 5 main ones that I tended to, they were my go-to. And number 1, I call it mindfulness with heart. And I say that because mindfulness is more mainstream understood, but calling it heart with heart, it makes it different, right? So the fact that we are mindful, that we are aware, that we are paying attention to the clouds. People will ask me, how do you see so many sunsets? And I say, I look up.
Yeah.
And it's like, sounds kind of
That's a good place to
cheeky
start.
answer, but I actually literally look up on a regular basis because I know
Yeah.
there's liable to be amazing treasures up there because I've seen it so many times. But most people are so down there, they never are literally just,
Uh-huh.
ah. So if you're mindful of like I'd look outside like right now, and if I was out, if we weren't doing the interview, I'd be out there with my camera because there's the beginning of what looks like a pretty awesome sunset starting right about now. So my
Cool.
point being, the mindfulness with heart is what I call a catalyst.
Okay.
Then the second one is called movement. And it's been really clear to me in my life so many times where I would be stuck creatively or just stuck in a business problem and I didn't know what to do. And initially, before I was dancing again, I would just go outside and run or go outside and shoot some
Go for
baskets or
walks.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, go for a walk. Yeah. Now it would be more like dance, turn on some fun music and move it around a little bit,
Yeah.
move it
Yeah.
around. And I think back to the point you've made a lot about COVID, is that we have been even more sedentary than ever the last
Yep.
18, 20 months. Many of us have been. And so we're in kind of this shape a lot. That shape is not the shape of flow. It's the shape of restriction. And so and we've had to do it, and thank God we have this. I mean, the new
Yeah.
relationships, the new opportunities that have emerged thanks to being online so much. But
Yeah.
nevertheless, we pay a price. And so if we're not moving to free up the energy and get our metabolism moving again, all the other things don't work. So the second catalyst is to move, is to literally just get up and move and embody what you believe in. The third one is nature. And obviously, anytime you spend in nature, appreciating nature, it's going to change you in some way, right? I mean, we do this. We go for walks in the woods, walks on the beach. We go for hikes. So we'll feel that change of being out in nature. So we already get this. So
Yeah.
I'm just giving it a name. Yep, that's why nature is a catalyst. You go
Uh-huh.
outside for that purpose. It will change you somehow inside. That could open the door to creativity. But
Nature
I'm
shows
also
us our true nature.
great. Exactly.
Hmm.
That's a
Yeah.
beautiful expression.
Yeah.
And so nature is also at a kind of a very more spiritual level, an energetic intelligence system. And
Hmm.
actually, we're always in nature. We're never not in nature. We can be in a box that we think is kind of shutting nature out. But if we can breathe, we're still in
Hmm.
nature.
This
So
is true.
nature doesn't seem to be here. I mean, actually, it is here because here's my little bit of nature right on my
Oh,
desk.
yes.
On my desk, I've got 15 plants in my bedroom,
Hmm.
so that nature is present even though I'm indoors a lot. But nature as a regenerative tool to catalyze a spark of creativity is why I mention it in
Hmm.
this context. So nature
Hmm.
is a catalyst. And
Hmm.
I mean, all the songs that have been written about and poems that have been written about the beauty of the sun, the rain, the wind, the snow, the full moon, certainly it's a muse. The fourth I call playfulness. And to me, the energy of playfulness is possibly the most powerful catalyst of all. Because if we can find a playful spirit, which got turned back on in me a few years ago, and it's like I can't turn it off, and I'm liable to say something inappropriate at any point. I really won't, but I just it's hard
Okay.
not to be kind of silly, because I've
Uh-huh.
gone through life-threatening situations. I've gone through epic failures, lost a lot of people in my family, of people in my life in different ways, and I could be very tragic. I could act very tragic. And I'm not saying just be superficial and write all that off, because I have deeply felt all of those losses and allowed myself to deeply feel them. But I also know that the flip side of that, once you feel that, is to get back to your essential nature. And to me, for many of us, it is being playful.
Yeah.
And that the activity of just being playful, a playful energy brought into a meeting when you're stuck, and then somebody says something silly, breaks that ice or
Right?
that log jam, and
Uh-huh.
a creative idea is liable to pop in.
Yeah.
Or just
Yeah.
saying
Yes, it
something
will.
completely ridiculous when you're stuck, and
Uh-huh.
and I've done this any number of times. I said, I'm going to say something right now. It's completely crazy idea. I don't expect any of you to buy into it, but I'm going to say it anyway. And they'll kind of sit there thinking that's like completely crazy. That makes no sense at all. But then somebody
Uh-huh.
sometimes will say, well, we could take, that, no, that's not going to exactly work, but we could take. So in other words, that
Mm.
injection of a playful idea catalyze
Mhm.
something else in somebody else.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Mhm.
playfulness, and what I want
Breaks
to
the
say to
seriousness. My
all
son
of,
reminds me of this. Sorry. I just, there's a little bit of lag, so I didn't mean to interrupt you earlier, but my 6-year-old, he reminds me every day to be playful.
beautiful.
Um,
Well, that's
yeah.
exactly what I was about to say, that um, I want to remind all the adults listening, which is probably nearly all adults, or a very large percentage, is that for those of us who believe it's not okay to be the kid anymore, the childlike energy, the playful energy, watch what you are like when you come up on children playing. What
Mm.
are you like? Do you stay in the adult serious, business mode, or
Mhm.
is it just so tempting to get down in there and be playful with them, and then start making up names and deciding where that figure's going? And that's what we do. And our voice changes. We are, all
Yep.
of us, our voice
Totally.
changes.
Yep.
And are the kids forcing us to talk like them? No.
No.
You want to do that because it just feels right to be in their world, because it's a
Mhm.
playful world of the imagination. They're creating.
Mhm. Mhm.
If we doubt our innate creativity, remember what we once were. we've it's not that we never had it, we've just kind of gotten away from it because maybe you didn't have the artistic thing, and maybe your parents kind of discouraged you from being
Mm.
too creative. That's happened to way too many
Mm-hmm.
people. Or maybe a
Yeah.
teacher did, or maybe a sibling did, or a friend said, "Oh no,
Mm-hmm.
Anastara, no, no." Every time
Mm.
you're saying no, you make sure you're in a house
Yeah,
down
yeah.
down
Doing
the
the shower.
road, doing all of that, you know. So a
Yeah.
lot of us had that programming, right? So playfulness is an energy that in and of itself, just being in that playful energy, as you do when you're around kids playing.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, that's what you do. You change into that. No one's forcing you to do that. You want to,
Yeah.
because you know
Yeah.
you were once that way, and it's still in you, and you
Totally.
secretly want to do it again. So that's playfulness. And then the
Man.
last catalyst, I call it artistic expression. That basically, that whether or not you ever want to be a poet or a writer or a dancer or an artist or a painter or a singer or anything like that, that the challenge of trying new artistic things that you've maybe never done before, haven't done it in years,
Mm.
like creative writing or photography or writing a poem or
Mm-hmm.
singing or dancing, any of those things, all of
Mm-hmm.
which we do when I do the creativity masterclass. So it's all part of it. So people try lots of different things. The process of doing that, you start the process of building new neural circuitry where responding to a creative challenge starts to feel fun again, instead of feeling like I'm
Mm-hmm.
not creative, I can't do that. Eric's the one that we have to get Eric involved in this. We got to get
Mm-hmm.
Tom involved in this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we do, but sometimes we could have gone a lot farther ourselves. We just haven't trusted our own creativity. So a lot of my course, the masterclass, is to kind of get them, at least for 6 weeks, to accept this idea that they might really truly be fundamentally creative, and I'm not just making this up.
Oh, I
And
love
I feel
that.
like if I get them for 4 weeks or 6 weeks, good shot that they're going to believe it, because they're going to experience it enough times that they'll realize
Right.
this is me. This feels so natural. I feel so good when I'm dancing. I feel so
Uh-huh.
good when I'm doing some of this other stuff, and I don't need to become a dancer. I'm not giving up my day job to be a creative writer. But if I'm not doing these things that bring me so much satisfaction and nourish my soul, then I'm not fully me.
Mm.
I could
Mm-hmm.
have my mission in life, that's a wonderful mission to serve humanity. But if I'm not filling my days with at
Mm.
least some creative outlets that are rich and fulfilling to me, then
Mm-hmm.
you're not bringing all of yourself. You're just not. I mean, part of why I'm currently teaching this masterclass, and part of why I wanted to do it, was purely selfish. Like, I have to be teaching this thing. That I've got to be in this mode. I've been running the university so much lately. There's a
Uh-huh.
lot going
Yeah.
on, and it's very mental. And I thought, my energy, I will do a better job with what I'm needing to do with the institute if I am expressing my creativity, helping others express theirs
Mm. Mm.
on a regular
Mm-hmm.
basis. Then I'm in touch with that more easily than the rough edges of all this other stuff that I don't enjoy doing as much. The
Mm.
rough edges get kind
Mm-hmm.
of polished off because I'm in more of a flow, because I'm helping people get in a flow every week
Yep.
on Thursday. You understand what I'm saying. So
Oh,
I'm doing
yes.
it for me, knowing it's going to help others, and knowing it's going to help me big
Of
time,
course.
and therefore help those who work with me.
Yeah. We teach what we want to work on ourselves. You know, we get
You
into
bet.
what we when I had a lot of pain in my body and things like this, I went to massage school. I learned how
Mm,
to move energy, not just in my own body, but in other and to assist others in theirs, in their physical healing. And so we love to learn what it is that we want to work on ourselves. And
yeah.
I just love intelligent, inspiring conversations. And so I set this up for
Yeah.
me to be able to talk to amazing intellectuals on the planet and who are doing great work in the world. You mentioned Stanford and the university. Can you tell us just a little bit more about that?
Well, Stanford, I've had a long relationship there since '97, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and they're one of the top 5 universities in the world, largely because they want to know what's new.
Mm-hmm.
They're much less about the past than other very famous schools like a Harvard or an Oxford. Not that those places aren't also about innovation, but Stanford especially has a culture of, we're into what's new and valid. It's got to be
Mm-hmm.
valid. They're a science school
Mm-hmm.
fundamentally, right?
Yeah.
So HeartMath got a foothold in there. I did back with the business school back in the late 90s. And they loved this course I put together for these 140 executives that would come to the Stanford campus for 6 weeks every summer. And so this HeartMath 2-part course was part of this graduate curriculum at Stanford for executives that would come in from all over the world, most from outside the US, actually. It was a fascinating group to work with year after year after year, because many of them were not American. They were completely pulled out of their own cultures. They were away from home, maybe the longest time they've ever been away from their home, their family, their country, their company, their organization, whatever. So HeartMath was a great fit because it was a way that these people suddenly from kind of back in college, and they're people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, hadn't been in college for years, but living in dormitories on the Stanford
Oh,
campus,
wow.
really nice dormitories at the
Uh-huh.
business school. But anyway, and so there's a lot of change, a lot of stress because of the multiple things they're trying to deal with. So HeartMath came in through me as a set of techniques to help them learn better while they were there, but also manage the transition back when they would leave to go back to their company, their family, their community, their
Brilliant.
nation, et cetera, all that.
Yeah.
And so that kind of got us a foothold, and that spread into the employee wellness program. So about 13, 14 years ago, I was invited to start teaching HeartMath inside what's called the Be Well program, which is any Stanford employee, faculty, staff, even students, but it's mainly staff, get to attend this, and so does the public. So anybody can look on the Stanford website and look at courses. I started teaching HeartMath there in around 2008, something like that.
Okay.
And then it was 2017 where that group said, this new creativity thing you're talking about, keep doing the HeartMath, but this creativity thing sounds really cool. Can you do a several part course? So I love, it's not like I'm a college professor. I teach at Stanford, which I feel very honored that it's now 25 years that I've been doing it there.
Wow.
But so that's really, really cool. But I find myself in higher education, whether I like it or not. And so I'm now this institute that I joined as president not quite a year and a half ago. It's all a school for holistic studies. So right now, with the world the way it is, as dreadful and desperate as certain situations are, nevertheless, there's been an awakening, right? I think many of the people viewing this right now are aware of it in themselves, let alone in people around them that have suddenly taken an interest in wellness, or taken an interest in astrology, or taken an interest in some facet of consciousness that they hadn't before. So there's an awakening going on. So we're at a point as what we're called the Graduate Institute, and we have a very memorable URL, learn.edu. Learn.edu. I didn't get that. They got that 20 years ago. It's amazing. They got that, learn.edu. It's a school to promote the idea of having a holistic worldview and how that applies to integrative health and healing, to learning and thinking, to consciousness studies, a variety of programs. You can get a master's degree and coaching certificates, all kinds of things. So I'm kind of back in the, thank you, popping it up right on the screen there. Perfect. So I'm finding myself in an academic structure, and we're at a point of looking to grow, because there is so much need in the world for these kinds of ideas. People, the time is now. The time is right to awaken to that sense of the wholeness of what we are. I think one of the silver linings of COVID is this experience that you could talk to anyone on planet Earth, and they've probably worn a mask. They may have not been vaccinated yet. They've had to quarantine. They've seen their job had to change. They've lost somebody that they know, if not a family member. We have a wild level of shared experience that nothing ever before that I'm aware of has done for every single person on planet Earth. And so the interconnectedness of life is kind of more, okay, if you didn't get it before, there's gonna be a virus that's gonna make it really obvious that it's one interconnected species, one interconnected society, planet.
One human family.
One human family. One.
1111. Renaissance human family.
Exactly.
I love it. Oh, Bruce, how can people get a hold of you and find you online?
Thank you for asking. Well, I have a
Mhm.
very tricky website. Hopefully everybody will remember this. It's brucecrier.com. brucecrier.com. Yeah, I'll say it again, Bruce Crier, and then the thing at the end, it's .com,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
not CALM, although I should do that. I should do that's a great idea actually
Dot
for a suffix.
com. I love
.com. I
it.
should do
Yes,
that.
please.
So that's the best place. It's pretty up
Mm,
to date, I think. Yeah,
okay.
it
Awesome.
describes a lot of what I do these days.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. I mentioned before the call that we I've been looking on your website and such, and then right before the call, I was like, I'm just gonna Google search and see what it says on Google too. And the first thing it says is musical artist. And I was like, wow, okay. And that's how I wanted to just dive into the musical creativity piece of this puzzle today. So thank you for sharing your
I'm
story.
honored that I'm honored that Google would consider me as a musical artist. That's great. I mean, I feel like that's a big part of me, and it's a part of
Mm,
me. And
mm-hmm.
I am, as I said, similar with the dance. I I mean, with the dance, I didn't think I would physically be able to dance again. I thought even
Yeah.
with hip replacements that I'd have titanium hips. It just seemed like I'd be kind of like walking around a bit like the Tin
Mm,
Man, not
mm-hmm.
exactly fluid and all that,
Yeah.
but wrong.
Mm-hmm.
If I wanted to train myself right, I could get as fluid as I want to be. So I trained, and I'm
Amazing.
sure enough. But I didn't also expect to really be singing again either. But I get so much joy out of singing now, and I find there's things in my voice now that weren't there when I was younger
Mm-hmm.
that reflect a seasoning, a maturity, an acceptance of
Yes.
certain grief in my life. There's
Mm,
textures that
mm-hmm.
I can
Mm-hmm.
access vocally that I didn't used to be able to access.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget we were recording the album Renaissance Human, and at one point we were doing one of the songs called Walk On. And I said, as we were finished, I said, I heard things in my voice I've never heard before just now. And we just did that
Wow.
take. I said, wow, that's really interesting. That I never imagined that that was possible, that you could continue to grow as a singer. And I hadn't done it for so long. So my message is we can continue to grow. And
Yes.
science has proven this. Science has proven that people in their late 80s, and probably there's no limit age wise, are still
Uh-huh.
growing new brain cells. So the old
Mm-hmm.
idea that that just kind of stops and we just decline, 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 decline,
Just
decline, decline,
disintegrate.
decline, 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 decline. We can buy into that, and most people do. And so that's what happens.
Oh,
Um,
goodness.
but we don't have to buy into that. And I'll just say that one last thing, and which is that I recently had a test done. I didn't intend to have the test done, but somebody was testing me, and I didn't know it. And they were actually interested in my heart rate variability, which is a core concept of HeartMath,
Yes.
which is this balance of the autonomic nervous system in the brain, and how that impacts the heart and vice versa. And it's a super cool, very relevant, very mainstream concept. And so I was measured to look at my heart rate variability. I said, sure, no problem. And what I didn't know is there was a test within that was going to come up with what was my biological age
Uh-huh.
contrasted with chronological age.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been interested in this concept. I mean, this is out there a lot. I mean, you can have tests
Mm-hmm.
to measure your telomeres,
I've done it
and
recently, yeah.
oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
And
With Viome.
yeah, right. So there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of ways that it can be measured. And this, I didn't know when I was being tested, but this was going to be looking at it through heart rate
Mm-hmm.
variability. And so
Okay.
a graph comes out, and it showed my chronological age and it showed my biological age, and it said my biological age was 36. And
Wow.
I was 67 when the test was done. I'm now 68. And
Wow.
when I saw that, I was shocked in a really good way. And I said to the guy who was testing me, I said, that's a 31-year difference. He said, have you ever
Mm-hmm.
seen somebody with such a wild difference, such a wide difference? He said, no, that's by far the biggest I've ever seen. And
Incredible.
he said, well, it must be the heart math. I said, for sure, heart math is part of that. But I also know that part of my journey, I have this incredible foundation thanks to heart math. But I've
Mm-hmm.
also, my journey has continued. And in the last 10 years, I have experienced more freedom of expression emotionally than ever in my life. That has been part of my journey, and the acceptance of grief, the acceptance of depression at times, the
Mm-hmm.
acceptance of anxiety, but then the power to move past it has
Mm-hmm.
opened up a level of vitality and youthful energy that I never dreamed I would get back given
Mm-hmm.
what I went through 10, 12 years ago with all the health stuff. And it's not just getting it back. I feel 36. My body doesn't
Amazing.
always feel 36 in every way, but I
Right.
feel like bring it on. Like, in other words,
That's
I feel a
incredible.
lot of vitality now.
Uh, you went through the portal, you were rebirthed into this chapter, and you're so young and vital. I love it. Yeah, in the Viome test that I took, I believe my chronological or my biological age was about 12 years younger than what I am. So
That's awesome.
that
You're not nearly as
testimony,
old as me, so you don't, it's not like
we'll
it should be
see.
31 now.
Yeah, let's see what happens in
Yeah.
25 years. Yeah. So love, you also have some kind of free gifts, some gifts for an inspired life. Do you want to tell us about those? And you'll be able to find them in the comments below.
Yes, absolutely. So,
Yeah.
yeah, two free gifts. Ah, great. They're showing it now. So, yeah, two things that I wanted to make available. So,
Hmm.
this wonderful, crazy, genius musician, dear buddy, friend of mine, Gary Malkin, and I created this guided meditation set
Hmm.
called Sonic Sanctuaries. And there are two long meditation tracks. One's called The Power of Willingness, and just
Hmm.
kind of the strength and the power of just being willing to go for it in life, being willing to surrender, being willing to let go, being willing to love when you didn't
Love
want
it.
to.
Yeah.
So the power of willingness is the first, and the second is called The Power of Playfulness. And
Mm.
Gary is a genius musician who created the soundtrack as I was speaking the two meditations live. So we were in the same studio, in different parts of the studio, recorded live, and this is what is part of the gift. Also, as part of
Incredible.
Sonic Sanctuaries are the soundtracks alone without my voice, because the
Uh-huh.
soundtracks are so beautiful. You don't need to listen to the voice every single time. Just listen to the music, and you'll be in the
Mm-hmm.
zone you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first gift, called Sonic
Mm-hmm.
Sanctuaries. And the second is called Finding Your Creative Brilliance. And it's an ebook based
Mm.
around this whole Renaissance human model that I've been describing. Yeah, there we go. Finding Your Creative Brilliance. And
Mm-hmm.
it's an ebook, and it goes through this five catalyst model that I just described.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a combination of a lot of beautiful images, as well as this commentary to help awaken this in people, and especially since you've heard this chat with Anasara for the last hour, a lot of what I've been talking about will be reflected in this ebook.
Uh-huh.
So
Awesome.
lovely to have both of these things, and
Oh,
enjoy.
thank you. Thank you, Bruce. Yeah, and
Absolutely.
everyone, you can find that in his bio page here on the virtual event platform. So, Bruce Cryer, amazing. I'm so thrilled to have spoken with you. And I feel like it's just the beginning of our relationship. And
Absolutely.
thank you for
But
being here today.
you're wonderful, Anastar. I've been
Oh.
interviewed thousands of times over 40 years, 50 years. Yeah, that long. It really is that long. Wow. And
Well, only
big,
25 biologically.
right, exactly. Um, but you're so delightful to interact with. Your energy is so
Mm,
bright and so light, but also so deep. So part of
mm,
what I love about you as a person is you're deeply loving, you're deeply caring. All the little interactions we've had leading up to this interview, always with so much love. I feel so cared for, even though it's a logistical item maybe, but there's always love and
mm,
there's always care. And there's so
mhm.
much lightness, and your heart is so present that to answer any of your questions is a delight, because you're just so here, and with depth. You're cavelling. It's okay. And
Deep bow of gratitude.
well, deep bow to
Oh,
you. Truly,
yeah.
it's really a pleasure. So thank you.
Yeah, it has been. Thank you. More to come.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
Blessed be family. Thank you for being here with us today.